Preparing for a football commentary is as important as delivering the commentary itself. A lack of preparation or cutting corners with our prep can leave us coming up short on match day. In this episode of Sheepskins for Goalposts, I'll be offering advice on how to prepare for a football commentary.
And he scored!
One of the questions that most new commentators ask is how much preparation should I do for a commentary? The fact is, there is no definitive answer. Basically, it's as much as we feel is necessary to give us a foundation for covering the game to the best of our ability. The length of time spent doing research, making notes, and getting statistics together can vary greatly from one commentator to the next. For example, I asked 6 professional commentators I know how long, on average, they spend preparing for a game. The answers ranged from 4 hours to 3 days. Now that might come as a surprise, but there are several factors to take into account when it comes to this broad range of preparation times. Firstly, and obviously, everyone works in different ways and at different speeds. Some commentators are able to process and collate information quickly. They might even be keeping their own database of statistics, which they update regularly. That can save time on individual match prep. Others are slower and more deliberate and do each match in isolation. There's a commentator's preferred format to consider. Many, like me, still prefer to have everything handwritten, while advances in technology have seen others exclusively prepare using laptops and tablets, while integrating live stats platforms like Opta. Some use a combination of written and electronic, while others go as far as to laminating their handwritten notes for ease of handling and protection from the elements, and even carrying a portable printer to a game to print adhesive labels for each player. That is not a myth, it's fact, and I know a man who used to do it. While one commentator prefers to have a large bank of notes and statistics at their disposal, others like to travel light and have less in front of them. For some, too many notes and statistics can overload the senses, while others like the comfort blanket of a lot of information. It's personal preference, and it will make a difference to the amount of time spent preparing. For someone who covers the same club every week, knows that team inside out, and has all the statistics at their fingertips, they're not going to need much preparation time when it comes to that team. And if they're working exclusively for that club, given the audience, there's not going to be a huge demand for stats and info on the opposing team, though personally, I think it's both professional, respectful, and a better listen if we have a good handle on the opposition, know their key stats, and have some interesting info at hand, especially if the game is a stinker. In contrast to a club commentator, someone who does world feed commentary on foreign leagues where the information can be hard to come by, it needs translating, the clubs are less familiar, and the player names require a lot of pronunciation research, this can add a significant amount of time. That can also be said of those covering games involving lower league clubs where the only way of getting any detailed information is speaking directly to someone who works for the club, like the secretary, the administrator, or even the coach. In my experience, they are more than happy to help. Another thing to consider when it comes to time spent preparing is that some of the high-end commentators who are solely employed by one TV or radio network and who cover, say, 2, maybe 3 matches a week, will have the luxury of time, while others who are freelance and do 5 games or more a week won't be in a position to spend a full day or 2 preparing for each match. I've seen all types of notes ranging from the stripped down bare bones to the encyclopedic and meticulous. The important thing is that we feel comfortable that we have enough to do the job well. But it stands to reason that the more research we do, and that doesn't mean putting together a mountain of notes, the better prepared we'll be. In addition to the Sheepskins for Goalposts content here on YouTube, our Patreon page offers you the chance to join the SFG community and gain further tips and advice from our live stream Q&As, personal commentary critiques, and one-on-one tutorials. The link for our Patreon page is in the description below. In terms of what we research is much more generic than the layout, and mainly it's a combination of stats and facts incorporated within sections related to different aspects of the game. For example, main sections tend to be as follows: home team, away team, individual players for each of those teams, the team's formations, league table, other relevant fixtures, referee or other officials like the VAR, stadium layout, and then general, including the relevant competition. And then within those sections, we might want to include, but not be limited to, these stats and facts: a team's wins, losses and draws, goals scored, goals conceded, the current form of a particular team, often their last 6 results, what kind of run are they on, head-to-head between the two competing clubs. If it's individual player stats, how many appearances have they made this season, goals scored, will they be achieving a milestone in the game or playing against a former club? The various types of statistics are numerous, and the sections and subsections are too involved to go into here, but I'll be looking to go deeper into exactly what stats to research for and how I lay them out over on Sheepskins for Goalposts Patreon page. When it comes to statistics, this is purely a personal view of mine and one which will not be held by every commentator. In this modern era of in-depth analysis, I believe a lot of statistics lend themselves more to use with graphics and are suited to pre-game, half-time and post-match analysis. As a live commentator, we have to be selective about the stats we use when preparing our notes, especially if they're not going to be used in conjunction with an on-screen graphic, as would be the case in a radio or audio commentary. On paper, a statistic might look really interesting, but if it doesn't translate well from the page, it will detract from the commentary. The best way of deciding if a stat will work in the spoken word is to ask ourselves these questions. Can it be simplified for people listening on radio or TV? Does it enhance the experience for the listener? And does it really matter? Remember, we're not here to pick up brownie points for each cool stat we mention. The most important thing to be aware of is that the listener has to be able to process the information quickly. Overcomplicated or irrelevant stats confuse and distract them from the game itself. We may even get tangled up in it to the point where it might come out all wrong. Simplifying and contextualizing our stats is crucial. Otherwise, they become meaningless or intrusive, or both. There are a number of different sources we can get our information from when carrying out our research. Attending or viewing online a club's pre-match press conference, which normally features a coach and sometimes a player. Viewing the participating club's websites and social media feeds are more common these days. The websites of the local newspapers that regularly cover each club. These can often have a lot of information you won't find elsewhere because a lot of their journalists have the inside track. Previews on network media outlets like the BBC, TalkSport or Sky Sports websites in the UK or equivalent in your country or area. Stats-based sites for the nitty-gritty. Sometimes it's worth cross-checking between 2 sites or more for accuracy. Opta and Soccer Association are respected sites. Soccerbase, Soccerway, Transfermarkt are just a few of the free ones out there that commentators also use. Incidentally, if you're covering games with a lot of unfamiliar foreign players, the pronunciation website forvo.com is also a very useful tool. And if you know someone well enough who's connected to a club and they trust you not to divulge information, a call the day before can always help with background or off-the-record information, even if it doesn't necessarily mean they'll give you the starting lineup. On match days themselves, there's the matchday programme, produced by the home club and even fanzines being sold outside the stadium. And if we have time, talking to the fans on the way in can give us a real insight into how they view their respective club at that time. Chat to the local commentators and journalists who cover the same teams every week. They can be really good sources of background information too. Basically, there are numerous ways you can prepare for a commentary that will give you a good foundation for when you eventually pick up the microphone and start talking.